So, welcome everyone to Emotional Warrior Radio. This is Bianca Grace, and I am trying something a little bit different. I wanted to try and record more of my musings on a daily basis, and I actually create notes on a document I call the Daily Storm. And when I have a lot of ideas that come into my mind, either through my sessions or from comments or videos that I want to create, books I want to write, all of these things start to come together as as a storm in my head. And I thought, instead of really waiting for me to organize my thoughts and organize my process, so much so that it barely gets any airtime, why not just go ahead and get it out there to people and see what you think? I mean, in some ways, I think that doing this work is about being open, being vulnerable, and just saying something, speaking up about what you're thinking and experiencing. And that's what I'm going to do. And obviously my perspective is coming from an informed space. Obviously, I'm a therapist, and I have a lot of other backgrounds as well that I'll bring to the table. But this is something I'm going to try, and I'm going to keep going on. And I appreciate everybody's support so far, and think that this might be a good way to build more of a consistent dialogue with my emotional warrior community. And if you have any suggestions about what it is that you would like to hear, I'm more than welcome for you to put that down in the comments, and I'll read them and see if I can't come up with a musing or two on that. So for the next 5 minutes, I think I'm going to talk about walking on eggshells. An example, this is like an idiom or a saying that okay, I'm feeling like I've been open with you. I've talked to you before in the past, but now, I'm feeling really nervous about that because you've gotten upset with me about what I've said. You've had a temper, you get in moods, you're grouchy, you're doing this, you're doing that. But whatever state it is, I feel like it's negative. And I am starting to have that has an effect on me behaviorally, which we call walking on eggshells. And people want to know, especially men that I work with. And I think I don't understand, women too do this behavior, but I think men have more of an issue specifically in speaking up for themselves, especially in codependency issues, where women have more of an issue of standing up for themselves, not speaking as much. So I'm going to talk about this from the perspective of what it is that you're fearing in the other, this conflict avoidance. First and foremost, that this never works. I want to let you know, like, no matter what you think you're doing in avoiding conflict, it's actually creating more of the same type of issue down the road. And especially within yourself, when you avoid saying something about your experience because your experience is negative and you don't want to set that other person off, that negative feeling is internalized and stored within you. And a lot of people with codependent issues see this as, oh, I was fine until I wasn't fine anymore. And now we have a much bigger problem on our hands than saying something in the moment and trying to figure out how to solve that problem with the person that we're having an issue with. And sometimes that can still create problems. I'm not saying like if you just say something right now and don't wait, communicate, which is a motto of mine that I really, really like, that it's not going to also create an issue for the person that says they're having a hard time to have to face feelings of frustration and have to control their own aggression, have to control getting mad too. See, and that's the issue, is that maybe we're saying we don't want to interact with their anger or their negative feelings or feel attacked by them, but we also don't want to have to experience controlling our own tolerating our own frustration, modulating it, bringing it down, and staying objective, or even taking feedback. We're not even interested in that, and saying that, hey, you know what? Maybe we say this to someone and they say, you know what, but I feel this way. And so you need to take responsibility for yourself in that way. And it could lead to that. So what it does is not just avoids conflict, it avoids everything altogether. So I think when I hear somebody say, you know, how do I stop walking on eggshells around my partner? I say, you must first be willing and ready to face whatever feelings inside of yourself that you're trying to avoid, not within them as much as within you. Because you got to be able to say, I can handle my feelings when I'm approached with negative situations in order to confidently go into a situation where it will turn into something frustrated, or maybe they will act negatively. You can't honestly say that, and most likely won't be able to handle it if you aren't prepared personally. So I think that this is where I say, again, the work must be done within first. And emotional intelligence, emotional mastery, any of these topics when it comes to codependent tendencies within a relationship, these topics need to be studied and understood. Because a lot of times what has happened here is all of the negative feelings have needed to be pushed down. And so they are not spoken about. They're not given, I would think, good developmental nurturing, meaning they're still in a raw form, an immature form. They are in a place where we don't want them to be seen because maybe that wouldn't be pleasing to the other. That would hurt the idea of us in the other's eyes, which would then hurt us because we live through other people seeing us as good, perfect, ideal, agreeable, all the things that we were rewarded for. So getting in touch with, I think, the spectrum of emotion on the aggressive end of our experience, instead of what I call like the libidinal end, or the seeking, positive, curious, interesting, understanding, joy, happy, laughter, all of those at that end of the spectrum. We need to also be just as fluid in our ability to understand what's happening in the negative. And so we go through these emotional exercises and try to develop an objective way of looking at ourselves. And we can start to see where these negative emotions and fears are coming from. And each of the situations that we're anticipating that we can't approach with the other needs to first be approached in us. And you can do this step by step, one thing at a time. Anytime you find a situation that is challenging you, you first look at the emotions that feel challenged and find out where they come from in your history, how you made sense of them, and then go back through that slowly through time until the now, integrating all that you understand about yourself, all the times that you've been able to handle a situation like that, and then start to think about, in this situation specifically, is there something that you can plan or say or communicate to your partner so that emotion doesn't become central for you and you act on it. That person then understands where you're coming from. And again, maybe you can have more of a constructive conversation and approach them by doing your work first, and then communicate the work you did so they understand what's expected of them in the conversation as well. I hope that helps on how to work through not any longer needing to walk on eggshells with your partner. More to come. And thank you all for checking out my TikTok, the Bianca Grace, and other podcast sessions, and also your donations to this channel are so greatly appreciated. Thank you again, and I'll see you soon.